I entered the world's deadliest cave and uncovered its haunted secrets. I never should have opened that door. The moment I did, I felt a chill slide down my spine. A pitch-black void stretched before me, and I hesitated, heart hammering in my chest. They said the cave was cursed. Untold secrets lay within, waiting to ensnare the curious and the foolish alike. I shouldn't have been curious. Curiosity killed the cat, or so they say. But I had to know. Every day, I followed my normal routine. Wake up, coffee, work, and repeat. Today was different, though. Today, the whispers from the cave called to me. They echoed in my head. Come find us, they seemed to say. I walked into the forest, the sun a distant memory, replaced by heavy overcast clouds. The air grew damp and cold, squeezing the warmth from my body as I approached the cave entrance. The dark maw yawned, shadows swirling like restless spirits within. My fingers trembled as I reached for the flashlight, illuminating the rocky entrance. The beam danced on the walls, revealing damp stone covered in moss, wet to the touch and cold enough to raise goosebumps on my arms. I took a deep breath, the musty smell of earth and decay invading my senses. Then, I stepped inside. The darkness swallowed me whole. With each step deeper, I felt the atmosphere shift, becoming thick and suffocating. The echoes of my footsteps bounced off the walls, a distant reminder that I was not alone. A soft whisper brushed against my ear, but I brushed it off as my imagination. Yet, the air felt heavy, as if something was watching me from within the shadows. Strange noises began to surround me, a scrape, a rustle, the hint of a low growl. My heart raced. I spun around, flashlight beam piercing the darkness, but nothing was there. Just the shadows, lurking just beyond the reach of the light. I pressed forward, needing to uncover the cave's hauntings, unaware of the truth lurking within its depths. Suddenly, a cold gust of wind shot through the tunnel, chilling me to the bone. It carried with it faint whispers, hushed and taunting. Leave while you still can. My chest tightened. Panic clawed at my throat. I could turn back, escape into the light, but the pull of the cave was strong. I had to know what lay beyond. As I reached a wider chamber, my breath hitched. Bones littered the ground, remnants of those who had come before me. I stumbled back, nearly tripping over a jagged rock. Fear surged through me, icy and relentless. I could almost hear the whispers getting louder, the ghosts of the damned urging me closer. Suddenly, I saw a flicker of movement in the shadows. My heart stopped. I wasn't alone. A figure loomed in the darkness, its shape indistinct but unmistakably human. I froze, terror gripping me like a vice. I wanted to scream, to run, but my feet wouldn't move. The figure stepped closer, and I felt the cold seeping into my bones. Then, everything went black. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. When I regained consciousness, it was not the soft embrace of the earth that welcomed me, but an oppressive silence that hung heavy in the air. I was sprawled on a damp stone floor, half in shadows, half illuminated by the beam of my flashlight, now flickering ominously. I scrambled to sit up, heart pounding in my chest as the remnants of the figure from before danced in my mind. Had they touched me? Was it all just a fever dream? Rubbing my temples, I took stock of my surroundings. The chamber had grown darker, as if the shadows themselves had shifted closer while I lay unconscious. The bones scattered around now seemed to writhe beneath my gaze, their hollow sockets filled with a deep-seated betrayal and dread. I shuddered and pushed myself to my feet, any thoughts of retreat temporarily drowned by a furious impulse that urged me deeper into the darkness. The whispers escalated, swirling around me like an unseen tempest, a cacophony of voices beckoning, "Join us, stay forever, you're just like us." I stuffed my fingers into my ears, desperately trying to drown them out. I stumbled to the chamber's edge, feeling the walls pulse with a strange energy alive. Hungry. It was then that I noticed the far wall, a jagged depression I hadn't seen before, its outline glinting like silver in the dark. Drawn by an unseen force, I approached, my heartbeat roaring in my ears. The whispers morphed, collective breaths sighing in unison as I neared. I felt their anticipation, a twisted sense of eagerness that matched my mounting dread. As I reached out, my hand grazed the cold surface, sending a shockwave of ice through my veins. The wall rippled beneath my fingers, a grotesque mockery of life, and suddenly grotesque images began to flash within it, scenes of desperation and despair, of others who had come before me. One image froze my blood, a woman, her face contorted in terror, eyes wide and pleading, her body half merged into this living stone. I recoiled, a scream lodged in my throat, but the whispers intensified, demanding my attention. I stumbled backward, and that's when I heard a low, guttural growl erupting from the darkness behind me. My blood ran cold again as I turned slowly, the beam of light illuminating a much more defined outline. The figure that had haunted my consciousness was now fully materialized, a gaunt silhouette, with skin like tattered parchment stretched over bones, eyes glowing a luminescent blue that pierced the shadows. "Meddler," it rasped, stepping forward as the ground beneath my feet trembled, sending pulses of fear crawling up my spine. My instincts screamed at me to run, but my legs felt like they were encased in concrete. "You should not have come here. This is a sanctum of the lost." With each step it took, the temperature in the chamber plunged further. The air thickened, suffocating me as dread filled my lungs like the cave air itself. Behind the apparition, shadows began to waver and lurch, morphing into indistinct forms of previous victims writhing in terror. They reached out with skeletal hands, their mouths moving as if to scream but only managing a whisper, help us, help us." Just when I thought I might faint from sheer horror, the growling figure lunged, its hand outstretched. I finally found my voice and let out a yelp, stumbling to the side, crashing into the rocky wall, the sharp pain grounding me for just a moment, but I couldn't escape. The shadows swelled, encircling me, cutting off my path back. I raked my eyes across the chamber, searching desperately for a way out as the malevolent spirit lunged again, teeth bared, forming sharp ridges out of the suffocating darkness. Then the wall behind me shifted, the living stone thrumming with malevolence, ready to consume me whole. I was trapped. Desperation clawed at my chest as I faced the advancing terror, and I realized with dawning horror that escaping this nightmare was no longer an option. And then the ceiling above splintered, sending down a shower of stone into the chamber, plunging me deeper into the dark abyss. I barely had time to scream before I was engulfed in the chaos, darkness swallowing me as the whispers reached a fever pitch, echoing the final words that would mark my end, "Become one of us," and then everything fell silent. The silence that engulfed me was deafening, thick as a fog, wrapping itself around my senses and squeezing every ounce of hope from my chest. I drifted in a nebulous void, the weight of the darkness pressing down on me, taming my frantic heartbeat to a sluggish thrum. I floated aimlessly, detached from time, as visions flared to life in the depths of my mind, horrors that I wished to unsee yet could not escape. Suddenly, I felt the coarse stone beneath me again, rough and cold, and the mineral scent of damp earth flooded my nostrils. I lay sprawled on the ground, every nerve ending crackling with the remnants of panic. Pushing myself up, I squinted into the penumbral shadows that danced like wraiths just beyond the reach of my dim flashlight. My breath quickened as the memories of the figure, its gaunt, ghastly visage and the luminous blue eyes surfaced again, a horror that clung to my thoughts like a parasite. I scanned the chamber, realizing the wall I had touched must not have just reacted to my presence, it had invited something worse. The chamber was deeper now, more labyrinthine, as if it had fed off my fear and expanded in response. As I stood, I turned slowly, feeling the instinctive pull of the darkness beckoning me to venture further. My flashlight flickered erratically, the battery's life ebbing away, and the whispers began fainter but insistent. "Return, return to us," they slithered into my ears, wrapping around my mind, filling it with the promise of answers mingled with despair. In the far corner of the chamber, a jagged fissure yawned like a wound in the earth, its edges glistening with a faint phosphorescence that painted grotesque patterns upon the rock. My heart raced as I crept toward it, the unease coiling tighter inside me. What lay beyond? Was it salvation or damnation? As I approached, a cold draft swept through the fissure, and the whispering grew louder. "They lie, only we can save you." It was a chorus of voices, plaintive and urgent, imploring me to step into the dark. In that moment, driven by an unexplainable urge, I dropped to my knees and peered into the chasm. The glow illuminated not just the cave's depths but images that swirled within, flashes of anguished faces, tears distilled into rocks like rainwater, and skeletal remains entwined in shadows. The cave before me breathed, and with each exhalation, I felt a creeping, clammy essence pooling behind me. Before I could collect my thoughts, the shadows coalesced, spilling into tangible form. An ethereal presence hovered just outside my vision, close enough that I could feel the chill emanating from it, thick and almost sentient. I turned abruptly, icy fingers brushing against my neck, and gasped, stumbling back to the fissure's edge where the glow pulsed like a heartbeat. That I felt it then, the sensation of being watched, 1,000 invisible eyes scrutinizing my every move. Glancing over my shoulder, the silhouettes of the tortured souls materialized amidst the shadows, their faces frozen in expressions of horror, mouths agape in perpetual screams. Their limbs reached toward me, elongating like desperate vines twisting through the air, begging me to join their hopeless plight. "Meddler, why do you resist?" The guttural voice echoed from the deepest recesses, thick with malevolence. "You are entwined with the fate of this place. Accept your destiny or be devoured." My breath quickened as I realized the fissure was more than just a passage, it was a trap, a gateway to something far darker than I had ever anticipated. The mournful wails surrounded me, and my thoughts raced frantically. Could I leap back into the void? No, that would be futile. Then, through the din of whispers, I heard a different voice, a softer tone, wrapping around my senses like a lover's caress. "Help me." The comfort and despair entangled, pulling me towards the fissurite's glow, beckoning me like a siren's call. But the world began to shake as the shadows converged, a rising tide of darkness rushing to seize me. Panic seized my heart, and instinct kicked in. I dashed toward the far wall, frantically scraping against the surging force of the shadows, but just then, a pain erupted in my leg. I stumbled, looking down to discover a hand pale and skeletal clenching my ankle, the cold bearing down like iron shackles of despair. I thrashed, but the grip tightened, pulling me toward the abyss. The passages of the cave around me began to warp and twist, no longer resembling the place I had stumbled into but morphing into something far more grotesque. As I felt myself being dragged into the dark, a voice roared from deep within the chasm, "Only the willing shall pass." Terror coursed through me, but still, I couldn't let go. And then the ground shook one last time, and echoes of my own screams filled the air as the shadows enveloped me, the world collapsing into darkness. The last thing I heard was the chorus of tortured souls merging with my own, become one, and just silence followed. The silence was thick, a palpable entity that draped itself over me like a suffocating burial shroud. Abruptly, I was pitched back into consciousness, lying on smooth, cold stone that felt more alive than lifeless. The oppressive darkness pressed in from all sides, cutting off any notion of suggestion or comfort, as the lingering echoes of that ear-piercing wail played on repeat in my mind. Gasping, I forced myself upright, confusion and dread clawing at the edges of my sanity. The fissure, had it swallowed me? Or had I willingly stepped in? No answers greeted me, only the heavy taste of stale earth and fear lacing my tongue. My flashlight flickered weakly, but enough light broke the consuming gloom, revealing the twisted stalactites overhead that dripped with moisture like the leaky eyes of a mournful specter. I clutched my throbbing limb, where the skeletal grip had seized me. Much to my horror, the skin remained unbroken, but the memory of its chilling grasp lingered like an imprint. It reverberated through me with every heartbeat. Did it want me? Or perhaps it was a warning. Cautiously, I ventured forward, drawn back to the haunting whispers that now seemed to seep from the very stone itself. They pulsated with urgency, a sensuous dance of voices, and twinned a symphony of both seduction and foreboding. Join us. It is what you were meant to do. I stumbled blindly along the edge of the chasm, sensing that to move further would lead me into their waiting embrace. I steadied my breath, forcing my mind to dissect the swirling panic. Was I trapped in a nightmare, or had I entered some infernal realm? The atmosphere thickened with dread, the air heavy with an almost palpable essence of despair. A distant rumble echoed through the caverns. Could it be the earth collapsing under the weight of forgotten sins? Or simply the cumulative sigh of the souls trapped here? I felt the primal urge to turn back, but the very stones of the cave began to morph again around me, shifting like flesh as shadows flickered in and out of being just at the edge of my sight. With a deep breath to steady my frayed nerves, I tuned into the whispers. A faint thread broke free, beckoning me closer. It was more than just a voice, it was a consciousness, a personality emerging from the dark's depths. Help me, it beckoned, the far-off echo of someone desperate, pleading. I recognized the voice, woven with a sweetness so familiar yet dreadfully wrong. Sarah? I whispered, my heart racing as the last glimmers of hope ignited in the pit of despair. Is that you? Where are you? The shadows coiled tighter around me, thrumming with agitation, and I felt a suffocating reminder that I was trespassing in a realm ruled by darkness. You are drawn here for a reason, they hissed in unison, an ominous warning scraping against my psyche. Desperately, I fought against their influence, clawing at the earth as dread coiled within me like serpents. Soon, the cave walls began to tremble, and the phosphorescent glow surged like a heart-beaten otherworldly light pulsating in rhythm with the towering shadows, receding then swelling with grotesque intention. I pressed my back against the rock, fighting to catch my breath, but it was too late. Suddenly, a blinding flash illuminated the cavern, piercing through the oppressive darkness, and I froze. Faint shapes flickered before ghostly figures, half-formed and swaying, their hands extended in desperation. Their eyes glowed with that same disturbing luminescence that had haunted my dreams, luring me deeper into their maddening embrace. One figure stepped closer, its features obscured by the darkness, yet somehow I felt I knew it. My instincts screamed at me to turn, but I was paralyzed. The visage formed as it drifted closer, recognition turning to horror as I beheld a face I once cherished, twisted now in suffering. Me sister, Sarah, trapped between worlds, help me. You must fight them. Her voice pierced through the darkness, echoing like the chime of a shattered bell. Desperation waged war against my will as shadows coiled around her frail form, clawing hungrily at the edges of her being. No, no. I screamed, lunging forward, but a sudden searing pain erupted from my leg where the skeletal hands had once ensnared me, detaining me in my tracks. But the shadows were relentless, thrusting forth hands of darkness that swirled like a tempest, snatching my breath away. I tore my gaze from Sarah, who now cried out in horror, her voice mingling with the cacophony of despair reaching a deafening crescendo. And then it happened. A low, anguished roar erupted from the fissure, vibrating through my bones, shaking the very fabric of reality around me. The ground beneath me began to split as black tendrils of darkness began to snake forth, alive and quivering with hungry anticipation. Only the willing shall pass. Echoed the voice, menacing and deep, as shadows beckoned their eternal hunger drawing closer. Bracing for impact, I knew that my next choice could be my last. Would I abandon Sarah to the malevolence, or dive headlong into the abyss, potentially sealing my own fate? Time hung in the balance as the ground heaved, and the silhouette of my sister began to dissolve into the shadows, her eyes wide with fear. Choose. The voice roared, and in that moment, I felt the weight of 1,000 choices crush down upon me. With resolve or recklessness, I took a step forward. But just as I moved, the cavern trembled, and everything went black, swallowed by the howling emptiness. The world crumbled beneath me, leaving nothing but the sound of echoed screams, my own voice lost in the fervent chaos. The darkness was absolute, a thick suffocating blanket, wrapping around me like a lover's betrayal. Gravity felt distorted, weightless in a void that breathed with an ancient malice. No light, no sound, just an unnerving, spiraling silence that threatened to fracture my sanity. I couldn't tell if I was still falling or if I had merely become a part of the darkness, a speck in an infinite abyss, and then, without warning, the ground solidified beneath me with a violent jolt. I landed harshly, gasping for breath as cool stone dug into my knees. Disoriented, I pushed myself upright, heart hammering in my chest, but the world around me remained an unsettling whisper of what once was. A mist hung heavily in the air, swirling like tendrils of smoke, obscuring everything within a few feet. From somewhere, a low, keening wail began to imprint itself on the stillness, a mournful sound that crawled under my skin. My heart thumped wildly, synchronizing with the resonance of agony that permeated the space. Was it coming from my own mind, or was it echoing through the very walls of the cave? The whispers returned, but now they were blended with cries for help, shrieks of despair, recognizable voices tangled in the throes of sorrow. "Help us," they cried, and it became a chant. It twisted around me, wrapping tight, binding and coiling like chains. I blinked the haze from my eyes, anger igniting the shadows creeping into my thoughts. I had to stand firm. I had to find Sarah. The opaque fog began to clear just a little, revealing the polished stone all around me, etched with symbols I could not comprehend, ancient marks of those who had come before, inscribed in their very blood and fear. They told stories of unspeakable horror, and from beneath the stone, I felt something stirring, something that slumbered yet craved. "Sarah." I called out, my voice shaking despite my bravery. I took a step forward, and the ground reverberated with a thud, like the heartbeat of something massive, something alive. The cries intensified, now a symphony of untold mourning that clawed at my consciousness. With every step I took, the walls pulsed, thrumming with an energy that felt both electric and suffocating, and then I saw a glimmer of movement that cut through the haze. It was a shadow shifting against the far wall, contorting and coalescing into some form I dared to believe was my sister. My feet moved of their own accord, bringing me closer, across the slick stone surface that felt alive and hungry beneath me. "Sarah!" I shouted, desperation urging me forward. But as I moved, the shadow morphed rapidly into a dark cocoon. It began rippling, reshaping. It was no longer human, but something grotesque and writhing, with countless limbs flailing in the dark. The air turned rancid with despair as I felt the glee of the shadows intensify, the wails becoming jubilant cackles. "Join us," they teased, their voices melting into one. "She has become one of us, and oh!" I screamed, my very being trembling with anguish. I could see Sarah's silhouette within the dark mass, eyes wide with pain, fingers grasping at the air as if trying to break free. My heart sank into a chasm deeper than any abyss. Fueled by raw instinct, I lunged toward her, but the shifting shadows lashed out, tendrils of darkness wrapping around my arms and legs like iron shackles. Panic surged through me as I fought against their relentless grip. With every ounce of strength, I forced my way forward, reaching for her, desperation lending me strength that surpassed my fear. "Don't let go!" I screamed, feeling her warmth diminish, her laughter turning into a gurgle of anguish. The shadows shoved me back violently. I stumbled, my footing lost. "Stay with me," but they pulled her deeper, and though she stretched her hand out towards me, the darkness enveloped her entirely. All at once, the world shifted once more, surging forward with a force that nearly tore me apart. The cave walls trembled as though the earth itself shuddered in response to some primordial awakening. "Only the willing shall pass," a voice thundered, reverberating through the fire of my very soul, booming from the fissure that had opened beneath me. "Where did you take her?" I screamed to the shadows, anger igniting within me, a furious blaze against the cold. Suddenly, the mist thickened and shapes emerged, dozens of them, twisted figures suspended midway between this world and the next. They had once been human, I could tell, contorted into monstrous visages, mouths howling for release while their eyes glowed, devouring her light. "Join us, it is so easy!" They hissed, their voices twining around one another as they beckoned me closer, and then silence fell, a silence so profound that it felt like the calm before the storm. I was standing at the precipice, with my sister lost to the darkness and the shadows thrumming with insatiable hunger, riling against my defiance. With a surge of desperation unfathomable, I took a step forward into the dark expanse. And just like that, the cavern spiraled down, folding in on itself, an abyss that swallowed my scream as I plummeted toward what awaited me below, a profound unknown thick with twisted promises and the hollow laughter of what remained of forgotten souls. I felt the reality unravel around me. This was not the end. It was merely the beginning of an ancient cycle of horrors. And then, as the last vestiges of cohesion fell away, hands of darkness reached up, curling around me, dragging me deeper into the night, into their embrace. The fall seemed endless, and the air was thick with the weight of despair as I continued to plunge deeper into the darkness. I couldn't tell how long I was falling. Time lost its meaning, morphing into an intangible concept, as if it, too, had been consumed by the insatiable void. The sensation of gravity shifted unpredictably, making it feel as though I was spiraling inside a living creature that convulsively writhed against my descent. Then I landed not on stone, not on earth, but on something softer, something that squelched beneath my weight. I blinked my eyes against the oppressive murk, struggling to make sense of my surroundings. Fumbling, I stood awkwardly on what felt like clumps of flesh, a mass of surface that pulsed like a heartbeat, warm and grotesque. Light flickered nearby, staining the darkness a ghastly shade of sickly green. As I turned towards it, I spotted a cavern illuminated by bioluminescent fungi, their sickening glow casting distorted shadows away from me, painting the walls with grotesque silhouettes that seemed to move of their own accord. The cave breathed exhalations of rancid air, each breath imbued with the memory of something foul that had long since disappeared. I clutched my throat as nausea swept over me. The very air felt like a poison that wormed its way into my lungs, clawing at my senses. And yet, amidst the revulsion, the dim light beckoned me forward, swatting at the tendrils of dread that coiled around me like a fog. I was drawn to it, my instincts stirring a dangerous curiosity that warred against common sense. Wiping the sweat from my brow, I stumbled toward the glow, each footfall a squelching reminder of the dark realities I had unwittingly entered. The ground beneath me trembled, and I braced myself against a nearby wall, the stones smooth and cool, but alive, thrumming like the heartbeat of a behemoth resting just beneath the surface. As I drew nearer, the light unveiled a sight that defied comprehension. An altar, a grotesque monument hewn from bones and detritus, loomed in the center of this newfound chamber. Shadows gathered around it, swirling in palpable anticipation. On the altar, small offerings were arranged: dried flowers, pieces of bright fabric, and something far more unsettling, a collection of small, glassy eyes sparkling like dark stars amid the bone. Help us! The whispers returned, a chorus of unfinished souls that echoed from the walls, now dripping with moisture that glistened ominously in the eerie light. You've come for her. You must join us. Join the cycle. My pulse quickened as panic clawed at my chest. I edged closer to the altar, an unfathomable urge pulling me, each step embedding me deeper into the cave's dark embrace. Among the offerings lay a blood-stained cloth, and it sparked a memory, a hint of Sarah's laughter, and the warmth of her presence flooded back for a split second, making my heart ache. No. I won't give in. I shouted, my voice swallowed by the cavernous maw around me. At that moment, the shadows thinned, revealing straggled wisps of pale hands emerging, hissing with renewed vigor. They were begging, clawing at the ground, remnants of those who had once been. Their eyes were filled with anguish, frantic and desperate, seeking solace they would never find. You must choose. Choose what? I retorted, rage boiling within me. Choose to become more of you. To suffer. The air crackled with their dark delight, their murmurings crescendoing into a frenzy, echoing off the walls, warbling into laughter. The shadows expanded and surged closer, becoming bolder, pressing against me, invading the space I tried to claim as mine. And then, as if summoned from the depths, a figure materialized among the shadows, standing before me cloaked in wretched obscurity. A face gradually emerged from the darkness, familiar yet twisted, a warped reflection of Sarah staring back at me, her once kind eyes now gleaming with that same hungry thirst for dark completion. Join me, she pleaded, her voice a haunting echo